Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Elmhurst City Council for Monday, June 16th, 2025. And at this time, I'd ask if you would all rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk Tamer, please call the roll.
Janko.
Aye. Are here.
Hill.
Here.
Bram.
Here.
Jensen.
Here.
Toludo.
Here.
Baker.
Here.
Nudera. Absent. Virgil.
Here.
Nardini.
Here.
Vestito. Absent. Irby.
Here.
Brennan.
Here.
Barimas.
Here.
Bellinger.
Here.
12 present, 2 absent.
12 present, 2 absent. We have a quorum. Before we go into our presentations, I just wanted to, and maybe it would fit under something else, but I'll use the mayoral prerogative and say that it's with deep sadness that I want to let the community know that our K-9 Ozzie passed away a week ago with Officer Brant Capitelli at his side, who's here at the veterinarian's office. And on behalf of the City Council and the residents, I want to extend my condolences to the Police Department, Officer Capitelli, and to his family for the loss. A K-9 officer and the K-9 have a very strong, lifelong bond, and that's proven each time a K-9, and we did have 2 K-9s, are deployed to help the department with whatever the K-9 is commanded to do. Ozzie served our department for 5.5 years. During his time in the community, he met thousands of residents attending community events and school events, block parties, station tours, and on neighborhood roll calls. Ozzie was deployed to over 350 incidents, including tracking for missing persons and fleeing offenders, and the results were quite remarkable. Over 150 arrests, recovery of 7 illegal handguns, seizure of approximately $500,000 in cash, and retrieval of approximately 10.5 kilograms of fentanyl, approximately 4.5 grams of cocaine, and approximately 200 grams of heroin. For those, I don't know if the aldermen were told this, but we received the lab results from Ozzie's tests and learned that he had an aggressive cancer that does occur in dogs. It originates in the blood vessels and often affects the spleen, heart, and liver, and that's what happened that caused Ozzie to go in the hospital and led to the emergency surgery. So, Officer Capitelli and K-9, thank you for all you've given to Elmhurst, and it helps make us one of the safest communities in the state of Illinois. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the residents and to let the aldermen know what happened from the early announcement. From there, we will move on. Thank you. We have a special presentation for our Youth Advisory Committee, and I'll ask that Kevin O'Reilly, if you'll join me right here at the podium. Well, amongst the 16 or so boards and commissions that we have in the city of Elmhurst, one of them is our Youth Commission, which is chaired by our own Jackie Tamer, and it's a very active commission. I think it was just this year it was decided that we would have a Youth Advisory Committee to sort of get some perspective of the people we're trying to serve most directly. And I had an opportunity to meet with them briefly and talk about one issue that was starting to become of concern that I thought they might weigh in on. And Kevin O'Reilly, who's on the commission, has taken on to be the liaison with the Youth Advisory Committee to the commission. And Kevin, if you'd like to make a few comments and tell us what we're doing today.
Absolutely. All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members of the City Council. Good evening. My name is Kevin O'Reilly. I'm a proud member of the community, lifetime member of the community here in Elmhurst. I'm a member of the Youth Commission, and as the mayor said, help guide the Youth Advisory Committee with the help of Jackie Tamer, Rick Mojak, and Ann Zimmer, and other members of the commission. In the fall of 2023, the members of the Youth Commission thought it would be advantageous, as the mayor said, to form a youth advisory committee. After all, when we were sitting around the room looking at each other, who understands the needs of the youth better than the youth themselves? So a great new trend for us. For months, the members of the Youth Commission carefully constructed the framework of this group, defining the criteria for the membership and the responsibilities of this new group. This newly formed Youth Advisory Committee is now comprised of 18 members of our community, ranging from 7th grade to 11th grade. These young people completed an application, were ultimately selected by the Youth Commission and appointed to this new subcommittee. Although this is only the second year for the Youth Advisory Committee, it is only the second year, so everyone, members and leaders alike, were kind of learning as we went along. This year, the group provided valuable insight and has helped guide the direction of the Youth Commission. Next year, we expect this group to take on an even larger role with the Exemplary Service Awards, the Job and Volunteer Fair, and other activities throughout the community. At this time, I'd like to recognize the members of the 2025 Youth Advisory Committee. Some are here, all of them are not. A lot of different conflicts this time of year, everybody knows. So after we read all the names, we'll come up and, Mayor, we'll be able to take a picture.
Take a picture.
Quick picture. So members of the 2025 Youth Advisory Committee: Brady Shaw, Thomas Olens, Teddy Kamenika, Sophia Kamenika, Scout Gerald, Mike Grazzini, Evan Shaw, Megan Marisco, Madden Mikalski, Justin Alani, Ava Turek, Audrey Zimmer, Justin Lococo, Will Turner, Devin Manier, Cesar Hernandez, Ava Gutzow, and Gabby Tamer. How about a round of applause for these young people of our community? You're leaders in our community. We hope that each of you will continue your work on the Youth Advisory Committee next school year. Thank you again.
Why don't you come up here right in the center, we'll take a picture, you come along.
Yeah. All right.
I'll take a picture. You take.
Oh, I guess I can be in it. Okay, all right.
Ken Johnson
I
can take the
understand.
picture.
Thought it was one I could not be in it.
Let's stay for the.
Thank you.
I see.
See you, pal.
Guess they don't want to stay.
Those guys have it, yeah.
All right, we'll move on to agenda item 3, receipt of written communications from the public. Are there any written communications that any member of the public would like to? This is not public forum, but written. You can do both. All right, do you have a written communication? All right. All right, well, if you would deliver it to our clerk, and then we'll let you, do you need to read it?
This will be
All right.
posted then tomorrow?
All right.
It'll be posted tomorrow. Is that what you want?
These are the same thing, yeah.
Okay, all right.
All right. And Clerk Tamer,
Oh, I can also-
did we receive any written communications?
Yes, Mayor, there's one that's been posted from today.
All right, very good. Then we'll move on to public forum. Clerk Tamer, has anyone signed in for public forum?
Yes, we have Lori Buzzell.
All right, I'm guessing I know who that is. So, Ms. Buzzell, if you would use the back microphone behind you there. State your name, address is optional, and you have 3 minutes. Please proceed.
Please listen, don't hate me. Okay, anyhow.
Come closer to the microphone
Ready?
and pull it up if you need. Yeah, there you go.
Hi. Okay. I'm Lori Norris, and I'm here to talk about the First Street Ryan development, transparency, and community engagement. As I look back, it appears as if the city is allowing Ryan companies to hide behind ECPA in order to build its apartment building. The inclusion of ECPA offers Ryan the guise that their apartments are a benefit to the community. This is disingenuous in intention of a TIF. TIF also requires the location be blighted, and First Street is no more blighted than Michigan Avenue in Chicago. Under no circumstances does a First Street location meet the blight requirement. I believe it was Housel Levine, hired by the city to create a plan that said large apartment buildings will benefit our community because less families are moving into Elmhurst. How is family defined? 2 parents and 2 kids? I would beg to differ. Would it then make sense for apartment units to be smaller and more appropriate for 1 or 2 dwellers? That could reduce the height. Has Ryan really attempted to learn how they can build to reduce the height of the property? Every time Ryan comes into a community, scale is a big issue, and this is something they can foresee 100%. Kansas City, Minneapolis, Hinsdale, and Naperville weren't thrilled. A May 7th article in the Naperville Sun noted a group of impartial panelists organized by Urban Land Institute, as well as 75 to 100 Naperville stakeholders, would work together to decide if and how land near the 5th Street train station would be developed. This engagement was organized by the city of Naperville after 2018 Ryan Company's proposal was rejected due to resident pushback. The city was invested and the city listened. I honestly encourage everyone to read the article and review the 5 major topics the planner and the city are reviewing in detail. By contrast, both Ryan and the city of Elmhurst have been taking steps to realize this development for 7 years. Community outreach have been limited and opaque. This is unacceptable and is a problem that creates obstacles for our community's ability to engage. It has allowed the city to check a box and say, well, I guess not many residents are participating, so let's do what we want. Residents have become an unenfranchised people. The Ryan Open House meeting notices were mailed to Elmhurst residents with a near radius. Just a slice of our community has been given this kind of access to contribute to the plan. A plan that centers on a building that will impact our whole community. The building that will communicate this is Elmhurst. Realize that just as architects are, residents are experts in understanding our home landscape, its environment, and more specifically, we genuinely understand its value and possibility. How might we participate in this dialogue? To start, the city should require Ryan to update the development proposal to include height adjustments, offer a new community open house with Ryan presentation and community discussion, allow residents that cannot participate in person to submit questions, concerns, or what they like about the Ryan design and its implementation, and continually update zoningelmhurst.com concerning Ryan project, and there's a ton of broken links on that page.
I think you still have 40 seconds left. Thank you, and I hope your contact information is on there. Yes, very good. Okay.
I have, yeah.
Has anyone else signed in for public comment?
Yes, Mayor. Kathleen Eckberg.
Ms. Eckberg, if you would use the back microphone as well. Again, state your name, address is optional, and you have 3 minutes.
These spoken words are my First Amendment right of freedom of speech. My name is Kathleen Bernice Eckberg, and my husband is Gregory Allen Eckberg. Last name is spelled E-K-E-B-E-R-G. We have lived here in Elmhurst for over 20 years at 677 North Van Auken Street by Crestview Park. My spoken thoughts tonight focus on 3 topics. First of all, we believe we experienced imposters of police, of U.S. Postal Service, claiming they were investigating crimes, tampering, and theft of mail. The 2 men came to our home unannounced. After contacting the Postal Service, the authorities said their visit was unverifiable. This is backed up with my photos, videos, and written documents. We still have the same named mail carrier for 10 plus years. Yet now she's fraudulently delivering to us. It is reasonable to conclude nefarious actions. Overall, we should, as a community, focus on making Elmhurst citizens first. 2 ways to make Elmhurst citizens first are: first, in light of recent city lawsuits and a recent law passed by the Illinois General Assembly, our police officers need our support to ensure any conflicts of interest are acknowledged. This protects the citizens' rights. For example, the Elmhurst Department worked with the police department of a college within DuPage County related to the First Amendment rights of an Elmhurst resident. Second, and likewise, I am now searching information about the FOIA process, so there's transparency to residents. For example, a resident who simply wanted a police report number was told they must do a FOIA request. I don't understand. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That's it, Mayor.
All right, those are the only two who signed in advance to make public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make public comment but did not have the opportunity to sign in? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, we will close public forum. Thank you. Item 5 is announcements. Are there any announcements from the dais? Alderman Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to announce a scouting fundraiser for Troop 417 car wash that they're holding at the Spring Hill Suites Hotel, 410 West Lake Street on Sunday, June 29th from noon to 4. I am sure it will rain right after. Thank you.
So we're not likely meeting next summer? I can do it during the mayor's. Okay. All right, any other announcements? All right, very good. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Clerk Tamer, would you please read the consent agenda?
6.1, executive session minutes of the regular meeting of the Elmhurst City Council on June 2nd, 2025. 6.2, minutes of the regular meeting of the Elmhurst City Council on June 2nd, 2025. 6.3, accounts payable June 16th, 2025, $3,574,367.47. 6.4, 2025 meeting schedule revised. 6.5, appointment of Jeff Brick to the Elmhurst Senior Citizen Commission. 6.6, appointment, reappointment to the Elmhurst Historic Preservation Commission, Aldrich, Bucaric, Falls, and Hanson. 6.7, reappointment to the Elmhurst Zoning and Planning Commission, Pittman and Toliopolis. 6.8, referral review liquor fees 2025. 6.9, referral stop sign placement at northbound Euclid Avenue and McKinley Avenue. 6.10, referral vehicle stickers. 6.11, referral cost revenue analysis. 6.12, report debt policy. 6.13, report Elmhurst Craft Beer Fest request. 6.14, report rideshare access program reimbursement agreement with PACE, Ride DuPage 2025 committee report. 6.15, report stop at 3rd and Glenview. 6.16, report Fire Station 2 chiller replacement. 6.17, report Park Avenue Bridge Project motor fuel tax fund resolution. See item 8.1. 6.18, an ordinance granting a rear yard setback variation for the property commonly known as 364 South Hawthorne Avenue, Elmhurst, Illinois. 6.19, an ordinance amending section 44.74 entitled Yield Right-of-Way of Streets of Article 5 entitled Driving, Overtaking, and Passing, and Section 44.92 entitled Stop Intersections Enumerated of Article 6 entitled Special Stops of Chapter 44 entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic of the Elmhurst Municipal Code. 6.20, an ordinance declaring surplus property and authorizing the disposal of the surplus property, obsolete, in-car, camera, police department equipment. 6.21, an ordinance waiving bid and authorizing the issuance of an open purchase order for the purchase of asphalt materials. 6.22, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of the Illinois Department of Transportation resolution for improvement under the Illinois Highway Code for the First Street Bridge Rehabilitation Project. 6.23, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of the Illinois Department of Transportation resolution for improvement under the Illinois Highway Code for the Van Buren Street and Crescent Avenue roadway reconstruction project. And 6.24, a resolution appointing the City of Elmhurst O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission representee and alternates.
All right, thank you. Is there any item on the consent agenda that any alderman would like to remove either for further discussion or to vote against? Alderman Baker?
6.13.
6.13. Anyone else? All right. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item 6.13? Alderman Veramis with a motion, Alderman Virgil with a second. Clerk Tamer, please call the roll.
Schenko?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Graham?
Aye.
Henson?
Aye.
Toledo?
Aye.
Baker?
Aye.
Udera absent. Virgil?
Aye.
Nardini?
Aye.
Bastido absent. Irby?
Aye.
Brennan?
Aye.
Verimas? Aye. Bellinger?
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. The consent agenda minus 6.13 passes. Clerk Tamer, please read the report for 6.13.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Affairs and Safety Committee that the City of Elmhurst approve the issuance of a temporary use permit and a Class D liquor license for the Elmhurst Craft Beer Fest on September 13th, 2025. Signed, Alderman Michael Brennan, Chair, Alderman Karen Schenko, Vice Chair, and Alderman Brian Bellinger.
All right. May I have a motion to put 6.13 before the council? Alderman Brennan with the motion, Alderman Schenko with the second. Alderman Brennan.
Thank you, Mayor. This report is for the Elmhurst Craft Beer Fest, which is an annual event that supports the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation and the museum. I'll yield the floor for any questions.
All right. Alderman Baker.
I am currently serving on the Elmhurst Craft Beer Fest committee, so I will vote present on this particular.
The chair will advise you, I don't see there's a real conflict because it's a Elmhurst commission, but you can go as you deem fit. All right. Any other discussion? I mean, you are allowed to vote present. Any other discussion? All right, Clerk Tamer.
Schenko?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Graham?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Toludo?
Aye.
Baker?
Present.
Udera? Absent. Virgil?
Aye.
Nardini?
Aye.
Bastido? Absent. Irby?
Aye.
Brennan?
Aye.
Verimas? Aye. Bellinger?
Aye.
11 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent, and 1 present.
11 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent, 1 present, 613 report is adopted. We move on to reports and recommendations of appointed elected officials, Mayor Levin. I have several. First of all, we had a couple of memorable events, I will say. We had the Elmhurst Cycling Classic last weekend that was very well attended, and unlike last year, there were not rainstorms and high winds. Well attended and well carried out, so I congratulate DuPage Cycle for that. We also had the dedication of our new performance area next to our History Museum. That was I think there might have been several hundred there to listen to the brass section of the Elmhurst Symphony Orchestra. And again, to our museum director, David Oberg, that was a lot of his effort in procuring the grants, so I congratulate him for that. We had some, I'll call them gatherings, protests, public demonstration, whatever that occurred over the weekend. I want to thank our Elmhurst Police Department for helping keep everyone safe at the gathering and the march. I also want to thank the organizers and volunteers who coordinated that event. As I used to tell people, it was kind of unusual when we had the social protests after the George Floyd incident that when people were leaving, they were shaking hands with our police officers. And similarly yesterday, one of the chants was, "Thank you, EPD," or "Thank you, Elmhurst Police." So I think that's quite remarkable and says a lot about our police department. Item 7, or whatever, the July 7th meeting we just voted on the consent agenda. There will not be a first meeting of the City Council coming up next month. And lastly, I want to congratulate City Manager Grabowski, who won the Gregory J. Belowski Service to the Profession Award and was awarded at the Illinois Municipal League's conference a couple of weeks ago, which is for advancing the interests of the city manager community. I know he's quite active in DuPage Mayors and Managers. I know he has taught at Northern Illinois University's graduate program in the Masters in Public Administration and many others. So congratulations, City Manager.
Thank you.
I think I've exhausted my notes. City Manager.
Thanks. Just one reminder, and that is that the neighborhood roll calls are taking place each Tuesday and Thursday night starting at 7 p.m. This week on Tuesday, the roll call will be at Prospect and Adams, and on Thursday it will be at Oakland Grove and Rose. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, actually, I forgot one item I wanted to mention. I think all of us on the council have been hearing concerns about electric bicycles, perhaps scooters, and we put put an article in the front porch. We've talked about it in public meetings. Right now, there are restrictions. Some of these vehicles are not allowed on city streets. Some of the youth who are riding them are not permitted to ride them, and they're fairly expensive, particularly the electric bikes. I'm going to ask the Public Affairs and Safety Committee to look at that next week. For the parents who haven't bought these expensive bikes yet that are not legal, I just want to caution you, if you're not aware of it, look into it, because we need and will address that in the very near future. And be a responsible parent and make sure that your children know what the laws are and what they can and can't do. But as I say, we'll have more on that next meeting. Any other reports from elected officials? All right, we will move on to 7.2 of our agenda, which is we call a Zoning 101 presentation. No college credit will be provided, however. Eileen Franz, our zoning director, is here. City planner, I'm sorry, give you a new title. And Susan Rose, the chair of our Planning and Zoning Commission, or Zoning and Planning Commission, will have a few comments on her commission's role as well. I don't know how we're going to roll this out. All right, very good. While you're doing that, I will say that this is a good opportunity for the public to learn about what we're doing with respect to our zoning and planning. We just had someone making public comment, and this will explain the process we go through for even for projects that, whether big or small. The one that was talked about, the ECPA building, will go through this process, and as will be described, there are many opportunities for public input that are yet to come. For the new alderman, this is a good opportunity to learn what the difference is between a plan development, a variance, a conditional use, etc. So I asked Eileen to do this so that we could all be educated before some of these larger projects come before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for having me here tonight. I have a lot of information to share. I'm going to try and be brief and not take up too much of your time. Jessica Gall, the Assistant City Planner, is with me here tonight as well, along with Susan Rose, the Chair of the Zoning and Planning Commission. So I'm going to start just talking a little bit about our city plans. So the state of Illinois actually does require that municipalities have a comprehensive plan. So in Elmhurst, we have our 2009 comprehensive plan, which is a policy guide for the entire city. So one thing to keep in mind with a city plan, a plan is a kind of a roadmap, a policy book for the city. It's not like the zoning ordinance or building code with actual rules and regulations. So we have our comprehensive plan, and then additionally we have several sub-area plans. So those are smaller areas in Elmhurst that have some additional specific requirements. And we also have our bicycle and pedestrian plan, which is geared towards planning for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure and activities. So up on the screen here is just the future land use map from our comprehensive plan. All the items that are the bullet points on the screen are the different chapters that we have in the plan. So you can see it addresses several different issues, and up on the right, sorry about that. So one thing I do want to point out up here is this is a color-coded map. It has several categories. Our most common land use in Elmhurst is single-family residential, which is this tan color up here. But there are other land uses, other types of residential, increasing in intensity. We have industrial, business park, we have commercial, and institutional as well. So
like I mentioned, there are several sub-areas in our comprehensive plan, and one of those is downtown Elmhurst. So we have actually done updates to our downtown plan. We did one in 2016. We're undertaking one right now, and the one prior to 2016 was done in 2006. So in 2016, when we updated the downtown plan, at that time, the scope of the project was very zoning and land use focused. It was less focused on the public realm. It was more focused on taking a look at our standards in the zoning ordinance, our height requirements, our parking requirements, our building placement, our setbacks. So that was adopted in 2016, and subsequently in 2017, we went through a downtown rezoning where we actually changed our zoning classifications downtown in the area that's located on this map. So we changed all of the districts themselves, and we made some changes to the requirements in the zoning ordinance as well, which I'll talk a little bit more about when I get to the zoning ordinance section. So in addition to the downtown sub-area plan, we also have our North York corridor plan, which was adopted in 2015. And then in 2018, we undertook 5 different reviews of our sub-areas. They're all in the same document, but 5 different areas of Elmhurst. We did Lake Street corridor, North Avenue and 83, First in York, York and Villette, and York and Butterfield. So, you know, all of our plans have a series of, you know, some goals and recommendations. Some are more detailed than others. The sub-area plans get into a little more detail on a particular area versus the land use map that just has the general land uses. So I know that this isn't too visible on the screen, but this is the intersection of York and Villette, and this is a policy document. So if someone approached us and was interested in redeveloping one of the corners, we would bring out this plan, we would share it with them, and we would say, okay, this corner, you know, the plan recommends mixed use. The plan also recommends some right-of-way improvements, and that if a development were to occur on this property, the parking should be to the rear, not towards the front of the property. But it's important to remember again that this is a policy guide. It's not the zoning ordinance that's going to set the rules for the property.
City planner, can I ask a question?
Do you?
Alderman Nardini.
Thank you. Okay, you were describing, first of all, I love this. I feel like I'm back at school. This is awesome. You were describing the sub-plans, or the first one, the downtown plan, really not focusing so much on public, but focusing on heights and parking. If one sub-plan was focusing, say, on heights and parking or land use, what are the other types of avenues that they could be focusing on? If one category is heights, what are the other categories that a different sub-plan could focus on?
Sure. So like stuff in the, you know, we're updating the downtown plan, and the scope of the update to the downtown plan has a small part of looking at zoning, but it also is looking at like the public realm, outdoor dining, using more public space for outdoor activities, possible streetscape improvements. So it just depends on the plan that we're working on.
Got it.
Okay. Thanks.
Alderman Virgil.
Yeah. So the sub-area plans look generally like a list of sort of business or commercial districts.
Correct.
Right. Any reason why Spring Road and St. Charles and 83 are not here?
So we just haven't gotten through all of them yet. So, I mean, it's possible that we will take a look at those in the near future. So we just have been kind of going through the ones that are in there.
Got it. Okay.
Yep. So now I'm going to switch and talk about the zoning ordinance. So the zoning ordinance is, that's actual, you know, rules and regulations for each property in Elmhurst. And just a little bit of history on this. There was actually a Supreme Court case in 1926, Euclid, Ohio, Ambler Realty versus Euclid, Ohio. Euclid, Ohio established a zoning ordinance. They were challenged by a local realtor who claimed that that the establishment of the zoning ordinance was a taking to their property because it devalued it. The case made it all the way to the Supreme Court, and the zoning ordinance was upheld. So that was the first time a zoning ordinance was upheld. The Supreme Court found that Euclid, Ohio could regulate zoning to promote public health, welfare, and safety, and as a means to regulate the not having incompatible uses near one another. So up on the screen now is a copy of our zoning map. So each property in Elmhurst is assigned a zoning classification, and each classification is up on the left there. So each district has its own list of uses that are permitted by right. If you have a use that's permitted by right, you are allowed to do that use as long as you meet all of the other setback requirements or any other requirement for that property. It also includes conditional uses. Conditional uses, I'll talk a little bit about later. Those do require an approval by the City Council. And each zoning district also includes setback requirements, height requirements, parking requirements for uses, sign requirements when applicable. We have a chapter on definitions. We have a chapter on the different zoning procedures and processes that people can go through as well. So now I want to talk a little bit about some of the cases that may come before you. It's important to note that the zoning ordinance has procedures in place for variations, text amendments, map amendments, conditional use permits, and plan developments. These procedures are in place, and anyone has the right to apply for one of these applications if they complete their application and submit the filing fee. There may be situations where someone wants to apply for a map amendment, which is actually changing your zoning in the middle of a residential area, and this is very far-fetched, but they might come in and say, we want to rezone our property to industrial. We would not recommend that. We would not encourage that as staff, but if someone submits an application and pays the fee, we would be required to take them through the process. So we can assist people in the process and explain the types of things that will come up during the process to them, but if someone files an application and pays the fee, we are obligated to take them through the process. So a variation.
Eileen, when you said anyone can file the application, you have to be the property owner.
Correct,
Yeah.
or have permission of the property owner, contract purchaser, something along those lines. Thank you, yes, that's correct. So a variation is a relaxation of the terms of the chapter where such variation will not be contrary to the public interest and where a literal enforcement of this chapter would result in unnecessary and undue hardship. So if someone is applying for a variation, the 3 standards up on the screen are what they need to prove that they meet. And I provided an example up here of a variation we had a few years ago. You can see that this is not your typical rectangular shaped lot that we see in Elmhurst. In addition, it was on a corner. If you're on a corner, you have a greater side setback than you do on an interior lot. And the way the lot narrows to the north limited where a home could be constructed on the property. This variation was approved a few years ago. Text amendments are another application you may see. A text amendment actually changes the text of the zoning ordinance. Examples of that are when there's maybe a new use, like 20 years ago when I wasn't working here but was working somewhere else, doggy daycares were becoming very popular, and we had to amend our zoning ordinance at that time to address them. Since I've been here, we've made some changes to where we allow religious assembly based on another Supreme Court case, and we've made some other changes based on, if we see a lot of variations for the same type of thing, we might take a look at our code and make some changes in the future. The thing that's important to remember about a text amendment is it changes for every property that has that zoning. So it's not site specific. It's for if we make a change in the R2 district, that impacts every other property in the R2 district. The next is a map amendment. This is actually changing the zoning classification. So this is what we did when we implemented the 2016 downtown plan. So when we're looking at these, you want to look at the existing uses within the general area of the property, the surrounding zoning classifications, the suitability of the property under its current classification and proposed, and the comprehensive plan for the city. So that's when you get back to that policy guide. And then a conditional use permit. So a conditional use permit is, a public or private use, which might have some unique characteristics. So it can't really be a permitted use, but it may be appropriate in certain circumstances. So one example I always like to use for a conditional use permit is a drive-through. A drive-through may be appropriate, but it needs some additional evaluation to determine whether it makes sense at a particular site. And the photo or the image on the screen here is of the Culvers up on North York. They had to go through a conditional use permit. And again, there's 7 standards that need to be, the applicant needs to make a case for in order to have their conditional use permit granted.
Alderman Nardini.
Thank you. Question, going back one to map amendment, question about terminology. Is there anything, if a map amendment affects one parcel or a map amendment affects many parcels, is there a term for one compared to the other?
No, they're the same. It's just the notification.
Alderman Varamis.
Thank you. And for the variance and for the conditional use, they have to meet all those standards.
Correct.
Alderman Varamis, yeah.
Sorry. You can't meet, 5 out of the 7, correct? Can you hear me?
Yeah, but the people at home they're going to want to know what you're saying, so.
I know, but is the mic, I don't know if this is.
Yeah, it'll pick it up on the recording.
I'm just saying that the variance and the conditional use, you have to meet, if it's a variance, you have to meet all 3, right? And the conditional use, you have to meet all 7.
Correct.
Can't meet like 5 out of the 7, right? Thank you.
Okay.
All right, continue.
Okay. Next, I'm going to talk about plan unit developments. So plan unit developments have been in our code since 1992, but in 2019, we did make some changes to our requirements for plan developments and when a plan development is required. So for example, any property downtown that has greater than 75 feet of frontage and any property in Elmhurst that has more than 2 acres needs to go through a planned unit development. So a PUD, as we refer to it, is an alternate zoning procedure where, land can be developed or redeveloped with some imagination or some creative architectural design. A plan development, typically someone might be asking for relief from some of our zoning requirements. They might be putting in some sort of amenity for the users or for the public. A plan development has a lengthier application process compared to a variation, conditional use permit, or map amendment. We require some concept meetings before someone officially files their plan development. They're required to have a concept meeting with staff. They're required to have a neighborhood concept meeting where they have to notify everyone within 500 feet and hold a public meeting. And they're required to have a concept meeting with the Development Planning and Zoning Committee. After that, they can file their application and go through the regular zoning application process.
Alderman Nardini.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The requirements for a PUD, are they Elmhurst specific, state specific, federal?
Elmhurst specific. Elmhurst specific.
Alderman Toledo.
I was, as one of the aldermen involved in rewriting the PUD process, I would just stress to the new aldermen and members of the public that it may sound extra difficult to go through the PUD process, but it's actually designed in a way that is beneficial to all the neighboring property owners of a PUD. It engages them in the process way earlier than our prior process required, which has shown to result in a much better outcome for both the developer and the neighbors of the development. And secondly, if a development is planned that is so disjointed from the goals of Elmhurst as a community, the developer receives that feedback before the developer has invested significant monies in the project, which is a benefit to the developer and to the community. They can remake their design to better fit in without wasting too much of their money and having those sunk costs. So I just wanted to point both of those things out. Thank you.
And I think it'd be helpful, we're not going to talk about the subject tonight, but in fact, one of the speakers tonight talked about the building going downtown, and the meetings she was talking about were that very first step, that development already was worked through staff, went to DPZ, didn't go to DPZ yet? No.
No, just the neighborhood meeting.
Neighborhood meeting, they will go to, yeah. So these are very early steps, and as Director Franz will tell you, it's the very beginning. There's a lot more, but.
Yeah. And things can change during those concept meetings for sure. I'm going to just talk briefly about the subdivision ordinance. It is a separate ordinance compared to the zoning ordinance, but it is also a regulatory document. Any subdivision that's less than an acre can be processed administratively. We see a lot of lot combinations where someone might own 2 lots and they consolidate them into one, or we see a larger lot that goes from 1 lot into 2 lots. And this is where we collect school and park fees, if you ever hear anyone talking about those. If you create a new lot, you need to do the school and park contributions. But this is another regulatory document that we work with. Because of the way Elmhurst is pretty built out, we don't typically see large subdivisions, but we do see a handful of these smaller ones every year.
I think your middle comment back there was interesting, because a lot of people get that confused, that if you put 2 lots together, it's a consolidation. If you split 2 lots apart, it's a consolidation. But that's technically the term.
No, reversing.
Subdivision.
Subdivision, sorry. Yeah. I was almost right. What did I say, subdivision?
And so before I turn it over to Chair Rose, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what staff does when we're dealing with a new project or proposal. So if we're approached by somebody about redeveloping a property, we'll schedule a development review team meeting, and that is made up of myself and Jessica, our building department staff, engineering staff, police department, fire department, administration. We all meet together and review a project. We take a look at, more Jessica and I will look at whether the use is allowed. Will they be required to go through a zoning process? Does the proposal have enough parking spaces? Can the structure meet setbacks? Does it meet the intent of the plans that we have on file? Is there access to the site? Engineering will look for stormwater requirements. Fire will make sure that a fire truck can get around a property. Public Works will take a look and see whether the utilities can support the site. So we do this pre-meeting before we have someone, apply for a zoning application, or if it's a use that's permitted by right, before they apply for a building permit, before someone goes too far down the road. Those are some of the items that we'll take a look at. And then I'm going to turn this over to Susan. She has her own presentation to talk about the Zoning and Planning Commission and the process that the cases go through.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
And I hate to contradict the mayor, but there will be a quiz on this part of the presentation later.
Very good.
So make sure you take good notes.
Thank you, Professor.
My name is Susan Rose, and I am Chair of the Zoning and Planning Commission. I'm also a well-known geek for zoning. I have been involved in zoning for almost 30 years now, so I need to do something else, I suppose. My role tonight is really just to introduce Zoning Commission to you and talk about the process by which cases move through city government, because I think it's very important for everybody to know that, and it's important for you as city council members to understand how that operates. So let's see if I can do this. Can you go one? So this is for, I'll introduce, there's myself, Kevin Burns, who is the Vice Chair of the Zoning Commission. Kevin is a real estate appraiser himself with the company Burns & Walsh, and actually has spent a lot of time in front of various other zoning commissions himself. So Susan McCoy has been our longest serving member on the Zoning Commission. She predates everybody. She was previously the Director of Development at IC Grade School, and she's now retired, but she's been on for 32 years. Tremendous, incredible work. Next, Mike Scarcella, one of the fairly new members. Mike is Managing Director of Finance at Columbia Vegetable Oils, and if you want to, man knows everything there is to know about olive oil, so if you want to know that, just check with him. Dave Garland has been a member since 2016, Senior VP with McDonald's Corps, retired, very valuable member of our commission. Bill Toliopoulos, and that's going to be on the quiz. Can you pronounce Bill Toliopoulos'? No, I can't. I just screwed it up myself. His name. He is our newest zoning commissioner. His partner with Lori and Brennan, specializing in construction law. And he's very valuable in terms of the commission, understanding a lot of what really we have to deal with. Next. Carol Snyder. Longtime community member, principal and vice president of Push Design Incorporated. Melissa Pittman, who's been on both sides of the fence. Melissa is vice president previously at Morningside Equities Group. So when they were building large projects here in Elmhurst, she actually was on the other side of the dais, so she fully understands the zoning process. Mark Hoffman, an incredibly valuable member of our commission as well. System director and ambulatory development at Edwards Elmhurst Hospital. In essence, does a lot of looking at real estate pieces where they need to go. So those are the members of the commission. But before I go further, what I really want to say is we have an incredible resource in City Planner Eileen Franz and Jessica Gall. They make all of us look good. So they're very precise. They're very well prepared. I'm going to be on a panel with the Illinois Planning Association at the end of August with a bunch of other chairs of zoning commissions, and over what people say, if you've got a good department, it makes you look good, and we have a great one. So I just want to say thank you to them. They do a great job. Next slide. This is how the process goes. Really, Zoning and Planning Commission, we're the first step, and this is general. There's some things that are a little different. However, if it's a PUD, there's a few nuances in there. But if you're asking for a variance, a conditional use, a subdivision, a consolidation, any of those kinds of things, text amendment, the first thing that happens is you'll meet with Zoning and Planning, the group here at the city, and they'll give you a great idea what to expect. They will allow anyone to go forward if they want to, but they're very clear in saying this might be a difficult one. These are the things you really need to consider. So we review all those applications, and the standards that she put up, we go through them in excruciating detail on any of the cases. And I'll hold off on the middle part. We then recommend to the Development Planning and Zoning Committee, and I'm very clear with applicants when they come in to tell them about the process. We are not the deciders. What we're going to do is issue a recommendation to the Development Planning and Zoning Committee. They then take that, they look at our recommendation, and they look at it to see, did we do our job? Did they consider everything we need to consider? And then they add one more thing onto that. They have the opportunity to consider the policy implications of any of these variations or conditional uses. The Zoning and Planning Commission does not. We are not elected officials. We are appointed. It is not our job to look at it from a policy perspective. I'm not so naive as to say we never consider policy, but I'm very clear that's not really what we're there to do. We are there to consider the facts of a matter. We are fact-finding, and how those facts meet specific criteria. And so Development Planning and Zoning Committee then looks at that. Did we do a good enough job with that? They will then recommend again to the City Council.
Before you jump past yours, would you talk about the process of your taking evidence and all that? Will you cover that?
Yes, I am going to cover that. I am going to cover that. That's the next slide. They'll recommend to the City Council, which is you all. You all are the ones who decide this, and you make the final decision on that. You'll review the recommendations of Development Planning and Zoning Committee. You will get transcripts. They're available to you of the Zoning Commission as well. And you look at the policy commission implications of this, as well as how did we do on that? And you all make the decision on that. So we try to tell all the applicants it's a 3-stage process. So a lot of times people will want to come and lobby the Zoning Commission. I try to give them the sense of that that's important, but it's not really, we don't make our decision based on that. So I'm going to go to the next step to include some of the stuff the mayor wants to talk about, which is what's really important to understand is we stand outside the political process. We are a part of it, but we stand outside of it. And what does that mean? Which is we have a role to play, and that's the role to play. It's important for us to hear what people have to say, but we decide on a particular criteria. The public hearings, all the public hearings that we hold are legal proceedings. So what that means is everyone who is going to give testimony in a case is sworn in. They are, it's a legal proceeding. I'm not a lawyer. City Attorney Andy Acker has been there to be helpful to us in that. But people need to understand that they are under oath. There have been 1 or 2 cases where someone didn't quite understand that and actually gave false testimony. And when that came out later, I remember saying to him, are you aware that you just perjured yourself here? So it is perjury if you do that. You are under oath when you give testimony to the Zoning Commission. We keep a legal recording of all of that, so there is a transcript for all public hearings, goes to the Development Planning and Zoning Committee. It's their job to read that and review it. One change that we instituted a number of years ago was to have deliberations transcribed. That was not the case before then, but this is probably because I served on DPZ. I always wanted to know what were the deliberations, what were people thinking about the commissioners when they made these decisions. So it tends to be larger, more complicated cases. We will have transcripts for the deliberations. So folks, you can take a look at that. That covered what, Your Honor, what you wanted to know?
I wanted you to cover the difference between when you're taking evidence and when you're deliberating in terms of who participates and also why the public can't talk to you. You say you could lobby, but explain why they can't talk to you.
Okay, right. Thank you. So when you're under oath, the applicant gives testimony. He's under oath. Members of the audience who are interested, people in the community want to give testimony, they can do that. Once we close the public hearing then we move into deliberation. And deliberation consists, we are required by law to look at all of that testimony. We're required by law to look at any written things that come to us. So for example, if someone submits something and it goes on board docs, we are required to do that. And I'll say to people, if you want to give testimony, this is your time to do that, because we will be required to listen to what you have to say. Once that public hearing gets closed, people may want to talk about it, but it's very clear we cannot consider that. That we have to consider what was given during the public hearing. That's it. And what the mayor is alluding to in terms of not lobbying, it comes up when sometimes people want to send information to all members of the zoning commission. I'm opposed to this, so I want to send it to you in the zoning commission, or they'll send it to me as the chair. And that is not something that we can consider at all. That's what's known as ex parte communication. Why do we care about that? At the Zoning and Planning Commission level, everything should be as transparent as we can make that. So if you get to talk to me before the meeting, okay, then you don't get to hear that. You don't know what he said to me. Okay? So it's all got to be done in the public. It's in the public eye. That's really, the point is for it to be transparent and everybody knows what's going on. So I think those are key principles. Ex parte communication, none of that. It poses problems. Sometimes for myself it posed problems, since I used to be the 3rd Ward alderman, so when something happened in the 3rd Ward, people thought they could give me a call and say, you know, can you work on this? And I'll say to them, no, I cannot. I can tell you about the process, how to have your voice heard, but I cannot talk to you about this case. Just can't do it. That's not fair to everybody else. It's just not fair. So we don't do that. There are some areas that the Zoning and Planning Commission has final authority, and some of that's going to change a little with the new code, but there are certain things, the size of an issue, the fence heights, there's certain things there. It's limited, but oftentimes I will say to City Planner Eileen Frantz, do we have authority, complete authority on this? And what that means is, after that public hearing is decided, after it's ended and we move into deliberation, it goes no further than that. Doesn't go to DPZ, doesn't go to the City Council. So after that public hearing is held, we then have a motion to move into deliberation. And who can speak then are only commissioners. We have people running to raise their hands, but by law, we're really required to not do that. We have to deliberate. And in fact, we deliberate now at this dais. In past years, deliberations occurred in committee rooms because it was thought, well, it's just easier then. People don't get the sense that they can participate in that. It was my thought that people should be able to listen to that, but they cannot participate by giving further testimony. And the last thing I guess I wanted to talk about is there's always a little bit of tension here, which is we decide what we recommend a variance, we recommend a conditional use, goes to DPZ. What were they thinking? They don't agree with that at all. They recommend the opposite. Goes to the City Council. City Council says, really, we're with you on that. What was the Zoning Commission thinking on that? You'll get to see what we were thinking, but the good news is the concordance really between Zoning Commission and subsequent decisions made by the City Council is greater than 90%. I took a little conservative number there to say it's 90%. I'd ask to have those numbers run just to see. So I think it's a good level of agreement. It's not perfect, and nor should it be perfect. The fact that in 10% of the cases, City Council, for some reason, DPZ, you have other things to think through, makes a decision that that variance should not be granted, or that conditional use should not be granted. Those, I will tell you, those numbers are small. So that's
Alderman Nardini.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for you. Some municipalities have things we don't, like a design commission. How does our process differ with other municipalities?
I'm not completely expert on that, but I would say that Eileen might be a better one to answer that, to be honest with you. I'm going to have her.
I would say, generally speaking, our zoning process is pretty similar to other communities. Whether another community has a different commission that a case, like a project, needs to go through is just based on that particular community. But the standard public hearing, another thing that's different in Elmhurst, we have the subcommittees here. So in communities that don't have a larger council, they might just have 5 or 6 trustees. A case would go from the plan commission to the
full council.
To the full council, but yeah.
And technically, when it comes from the commission, it comes to the council, not to DPZ. And then we, as a council, when it comes in, we refer it to DPZ to, just like any other referral, to report back.
Right. But it's a little more time-consuming process. But I think in the end, we make really good decisions as a result of that. So a lot of people look at it for a lot of different things as well. Any other questions? Or
Alderman Irby?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chair Rose. A couple of quick points or sharpen questions. During this process on the screen, during the quasi-judicial process where you're swearing in the applicant and any testimony after the applicant makes their presentation, the burden of proof is always on the applicant. I wanted to make sure, is there any exception to the burden of proof to prove their case?
No, I'm going to ask City Attorney to
comment
on that.
It's not really a burden of proof. It's just, it's if after hearing all the evidence, if the commission determines that it should or shouldn't be granted, looking at all, it's not like a civil case. You say, well, your burden is to make it more probable than not. They're just making a decision. I don't think I've ever seen a review where they talk about burden of proof.
So it's just a persuasion of the argument or the case.
And that's done in deliberation. So if you want to, I know you've been to some of the zoning and planning commission meetings, and so during deliberation, all of the commissioners have an opportunity to address each one of those standards and say, I think they met this one. I'm not so sure about this one, but this is a strong case they did, and they present the evidence. This is what they said, and that's what my thinking is. So and then a vote is taken. So
great. Number 2, if the mayor allows, deliberations of more complicated cases are transcribed. As a council member, I appreciate the transcript 1,000% when it has deliberations in the transcript. So can you speak real quick on what the word complicated cases?
Sure.
At what point you reach and you say, let's do that, let's take it that way?
Yeah, that is an area of judgment that I as chair make, and I probably lean on the side of having those transcripts available. But there are certain cases, for example, there was a lot, I know you showed the one here, but there was one early on where if a house could have been allowed to build by right on that case, the house couldn't have been no wider than 5 feet. So it was my sense that it was pretty simple, and that deliberation, the transcripts were there for testimony, but we didn't necessarily need it for deliberation. But I take a pretty liberal approach in when we would do that, and I'm more often willing to say, yeah, let's do that than not, just because I found it very useful myself to have that.
Well, I thank you for that, for your ability to make that judgment, and I appreciate it when you do.
Good.
One more, if I can keep on going. It's pretty quick. When we do the project review, which may go back to staff as well, since we're in there, we have our current zoning that's codified, and then we have our new code that has not been approved yet, and we haven't finished, but it's kind of in waiting and getting there eventually. At what point will you guys do project review and go, well, here's what it looked like now. We're going to judge on that, right? We're going to make those decisions in the preliminary meetings. At what point will you guys start testing the water to see, okay, here's the delta between current and the new code? Or will that ever happen at all? But to me, I get worried about the new code not knowing if it's prime time yet.
Well, I will let Eileen answer that, but I'll also say there's many a slip between the cup and the lip. So you can't say to an applicant, hold off because we're going to approve this. Maybe yeah, maybe no. So it's when they apply, this is what the code is. So, but you may be asking a bit of a different question. So.
No, you are, Chair Rose is correct. Until the new code is adopted, the current code is what is in play. That is what we are reviewing. But as staff, we do look at the new code as we look at some of these cases to make sure that things are covered in there. And we have identified a few things throughout the process that we may need to tweak. But until that's adopted, our current 1992 zoning ordinance is what is in play. And if someone applies for a permit, and we adopt the someone applies on Friday and on Monday the new code is adopted, that permit that was applied for on Friday is under the 1992 zoning ordinance. But we are looking at them concurrently as things come in.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. I will add just two things. One is the concurrence rate. I say this publicly, the commissioners are not elected, so when people come around and say to you, oh, you would do that, wait till you're up next time, the threat, because, you're trying to do the right thing as an alderman or a committee member here. The system, not just in Elmhurst, is set up so that they're not subject to election. They serve and they're supposed to make their decisions without threat of political payback, or whatever you want to call it. They also have a certain level of expertise because, as you saw their credentials, a number of people bring certain things to the table. Chair Rose was Chair DPZ for many years, so they look at things very carefully. And from my personal perspective, I chaired DPZ. I was if the commission came with a decision, I would tend to say, well, it's probably right, unless I see there's something specific that was missed or something new happened after the report was delivered. But I try to respect the advice and the fact that they sat, and sometimes these complicated ones, there could be hours and hours of hearing. One example would be the sober home issue, because I think a number of people were here for that. It might have been the right decision based upon all these other factors, but there was a legal issue that I was concerned about. We had the sober home, the federal, what was it called, training on, and it was, pardon me?
Fair Housing Act.
Yeah, Fair Housing Act training. So the zoning might have been correct, and we're based on the decision was based on what was presented, but there was a very real concern based upon federal law that we would probably be sued if we denied it. So that was an instance where we did not follow the commission. There was a specific reason.
Well, and if you remember, that was a split vote.
Yeah.
I remember it very well, that it was a split vote. So one of the things I think these commissioners spend a lot of unpaid, unthanked for time doing this. They really do. So when you see 9 people who come together and there's a unanimous decision after a long period of time, those are the ones I think you probably can have greater confidence in. It's just a split decision is a split decision. So, you have to look at that as well.
Well, that was going to be my last point. The second point is that I remember when I was chair sometimes, and we don't have it as much anymore, but you get 5 out of the 9 commissioners show up and you get a 3-2 vote, and you go, boy, that's really sending a message, as opposed to a strong message that, 8 votes in favor of it, and then you have a higher level of confidence.
And that's the message I've given to commissioners as chair, is that why it's so important for them to be there, so that you, as a city council, have confidence that it's really been looked at by a number of people, and this is what the vote is. So
the only other thing I wanted to cover, and Eileen or Susan, you can jump in, is that or did you have more you wanted to add first?
No.
So we're going to be looking at a number of times at conditional uses and variances. And I think from my perspective, and you can tell me if you disagree, the conditional use is something that's contemplated, a use that's contemplated, but the council or the commission is going to look at certain factors to see if that particular request fits or not. And there might be some conditions imposed upon it in addition. Now, we call it a conditional use, just about every other city will probably call it a special use, but we impose conditions. So I think I can talk about it a little bit right now, but the building across the street was a conditional use to add additional height, and it was denied by the council because they felt that the project was not big enough to absorb that kind of height. And we were sustained, at least at the trial court, saying, yes, we exercised our right. We were not capricious. We didn't just say no because we wanted. There was a reason to say no. When you go to a variance, that is a higher standard. That's something that's not permitted. It's not like, well, we'll take a special look at it. It's just not permitted. And so those variances have more stringent requirements because we're allowing you to do something that you're really not allowed to do. So that example used about a house, I know there was one on York, and there's no conditional use on setbacks, and that one is about 3 blocks, south of downtown. They would have had a 20-foot wide house. The whole, maybe it was 15. It was just a very narrow house. So they're saying we can't get any reasonable return of use on our property, and so there's a higher standard variance. And if the commission votes no on a variance, or we want to overturn it, there's a higher standard. We have to have a 2/3 vote. Right. So that shows the significance of that.
And I'll say one last thing. I know you just wanted to say, but the variance is that first criteria is really significant, okay? There's something unique, and it's usually when we think about that, we're talking about the property itself, not unique, like I bought, a house with 2 bedrooms and now I have 8 kids, What?
It's unique.
I have a dog now, and so I've got to have this. That's not, when we think about what is unique, our judgment, and these are judgment calls that commissioners are making, but it has to do with the property itself. Is there something unique about that property? Not every lot in the city of Elmhurst is, 60 feet by 150 feet. There's some really odd ones around, so.
All right, Alderman Vramis.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to see if you could just touch on briefly, what the correspondence we can have with you.
Could you repeat that?
The correspondence that the aldermen can have with the commissioners.
That's an
through
excellent
this
question.
process.
That's a really good question. You can contact us about the process, okay? But much as the same thing with people in the community, you can't really lobby any of us to say, you really should consider this or you should consider that. That is stepping over into really talking about the guts of the case as opposed to the process.
I think I would go a step further, like even if you wrote about a pending case, that would be an ex parte communication, even though it comes from an alderman.
Yeah.
And from my personal perspective, a lot of times I don't go and weigh in because that's the time for the public. It will come to us with the benefit of everything that the public has said and everything that the commission has said. And then if you're not on the committee, what the committee says, and then we'll make a decision. So a lot of times I tell people, you tell me what your concerns are, but I'm not going to engage with anyone until the process is complete. Did you have a follow-up?
Well, I was just going to say, so if we're out and we're at a social event, or if I bump into you at the nail salon, let's just say, we can't discuss.
Right.
I would ignore her.
Right, right. And that's what I advise.
Just saying it more.
That's why you ignore me at both those events. I see that. That's what I advise most commissioners to do, to just not talk about, and aldermen want to do a good job, and we've had that, I've had them, and they've said, I just want to talk to you about this case, and I've said, I cannot talk to you about it. I'll tell you how the process goes and what the things that we look at, things we make decisions on, but I cannot talk about this case. In fact, our protocol is to not talk about it until it's gone all the way through City Council. So even once it passes our hands, we don't talk about it. If it's with DPZ, we don't talk about it. If it's in front of the council, and I actually think it's a good idea not to talk about it for a long time after that. It's just better do what we do. We do our jobs, we lay it on, and we give it to you all to do your jobs. End of story. So,
All right, Eileen, do you want to conclude, or you have more on the program, or?
I just have one comment I forgot to mention. When I was talking about our plans, another benefit to having our plans is it can assist with funding, grant funding, like our some of our grant funds for the train station were a result of having our downtown plan. So that's another really important reason to have our plans.
All right. Alderman Brennan?
Thank you, Mayor. With respect to conditional use, I just have a question. So there are 7 conditions that need to be met, and I gotta believe that when the evidence is black and white, it's somewhat of a relief because you sort of go through all this is straightforward. But a number of these conditions do have a lot of leeway in them, and the one that I hear the most about is that the proposed conditional use is not contrary to the objectives of the comprehensive plan for the city. So Eileen, you had mentioned that our plans are guidelines, right? So when and Susan, when the commission gets to the 6th condition that requires some interpretation, is this the spirit of the comprehensive plan or not? How do you sort of navigate through those waters?
I think we tend to take an approach that says, if the comprehensive plan says, look, we envision this whole area being green space, okay? And, someone comes in and wants to do something completely different there, that's when we would say that doesn't meet the objective. So we'll take a look like that. If someone comes in and the plan says we'd like it to be green space, and they say, look, one of the things we want to do is a school with community gardening attached to it. Well, that's a little different. Now we're like, and so we would question that a little bit more. So I think that's, in practice, how the commission tends to look at that particular issue.
All right. Eileen, I think, all right. So this is just sort of an overview. As I say, I anticipate that over the next year, we're going to have at least 1 or 2 major projects. And I hope this provides a little background to the process and the kinds of things we're looking at. I would go on to item 7.3, City Manager Grabowski, but I think I already covered that. We have a resolution, item 8.1. Clerk Tamer.
A resolution approving and authorizing the execution of the Illinois Department of Transportation resolution for improvement under the Illinois Highway Code for the Park Avenue Bridge Rehabilitation Project. See item 6.17.
Yeah, I should say thank you both to Commissioner Rose and to Director Franz. All right. May I have a motion to put 8.1 before the council? Alderman Brand with a motion, Alderman Irby with a second. Alderman Brand?
Yes, this is just tied to the report that we just approved under the consent agenda, 6.17, tied to the funding for the Park Avenue Bridge project. It's pretty much a process piece to make sure that we are able to meet the requirements. I believe it's IDOT requirements for the Rebuild Illinois and MFT funds.
Thank you, Alderman Bram. Any discussion? Clerk Tamer?
Schenko.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Toledo.
Aye.
Baker.
Aye.
Nudera, absent. Virgil.
Aye.
Nardini.
Aye.
Bastido, absent. Irby.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Varimas.
Aye.
Bellinger.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. 8.1 is adopted. Number 9, other business. Is there any other business to be brought before the council? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Alderman Hill with a motion. Alderman Brennan with a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. We're adjourned. Thank you.